Okay, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma rahimna marashid umurina wa izna min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. We thank all of you for joining for another session conducted by Ummat, the United Muslim Muamalat Advisory Trust. And today we have a very interesting topic and a very pertinent topic, which was kind of a buzzword if you look at almost two years back and even earlier. We will find this word every now and then in financial journals, finance-related articles, and so on. So today, inshallah, our aim is to unpack this phenomenon or this term, and to give a very basic understanding about the areas that governs fintech. So let's begin, inshallah. So if I ask a question like, when was the last time you sent money through using a mobile, your own mobile, or if you have made a payment using, your debit card or even your mobile phone, right? As you are, shopping for your groceries, or even if simple like if you have checked your balance using your mobile phone, congratulations, you are one of the beneficiaries of fintech, right? Or you have been using fintech even though you have not realized it. So what is fintech? So just wanted to hear from the audience, what are the words or anything that comes to your mind. Just I would like to hear some thoughts from you guys. I'll give you 1 minute if you can drop in the chat box. So when you hear the word fintech, what are the terms that comes to your mind? It could be anything. Yeah. Crypto, financial services, technology to deal with money. Good. Anyone else? Equity. Good. Okay, great. So these are all these terms. If you look at technology to deal with money, financial services, cryptocurrency. So these are all part of the whole ecosystem of fintech, right? So what is fintech? Fintech is actually a term. It is a combination of two umbrella terms: financial and technology, right? So anything to do with finance combined with technology, that is where the fintech meets, right? So why fintech is so why kind of for example, right, let's say finance and technology. So for example, if you take a traditional bank, we have some kind of technology in these traditional banks, right? So why fintech is so different from the traditional banking, right? So that is why how we differentiate it, right? So that is probably where the question comes in the differentiating factor comes in the fintech, right? So we say that the difference is actually when we look at fintech, it is not only we are referring to the technological aspect of it, but how that technology is very innovative and very disruptive. So when I say innovative, it is not in the common sense. It's not the common practice how we are doing things. So for example, we used to go to the bank, mostly to open an account and so on. It's a very tedious process. And sometimes, there is a long, queue to just withdraw money and so on, to even sometimes deposit money. even to send some money to another person, right? And then when it comes to fintech, the difference is the one is the innovative part, and the other one is the disruptive part. So when we say disruptive, what we mean is it is challenging the status quo of the current system. So those days we used to engage in financial transaction in a certain way with the traditional banking, which was very bureaucratic, right? It has its own rule, it has its own procedures and so on. But right now, for example, if you look at a digital banking, right? A digital bank, it is a manifestation of fintech. In Sri Lanka, we have Free right? The first fully fledged digital bank by Nation Trust Bank, and we also have other digital banks across the globe. And in these banking systems, you don't have to technically you don't have to literally visit a branch or anything of such. You just open your mobile app, you do the KYC, which means like you fill up your initial information and you just take a selfie to prove your identity, and that's it. You kind of open the account, right? And then transacting between banks and adding another bank and even doing payment, and these are all within your fingertips. So these are what we call as the disruptive technologies that is being leveraged to increase the scale. So we don't have physical branch per se, and also which means that the fixed cost is drastically going down, and also it is the scalability is huge, right? So that those are the key things or elements that we see in the fintech. So what is then Islamic fintech? So in Islamic fintech is the same concept, just like fintech, but here we have the Islamic, the financial, sectors in the Islamic ecosystem. These are, revolutionized through innovative and disruptive technologies. So, for example, we have Takaful, and now we have Takaful Tech. Just like we have in insurance, we have InsurTech. So now you don't. Now what they do is they use AI and machine learning to assess the risk and reduce the risk assessment to manage their risk, right? And then they also use Internet of Things, IoT, by using wearables like just like your smartwatches and so on, and get real-time data, and they can, by doing that, they can actually reduce their premium, and in the Islamic case, the contribution, right? So we have cases like in Malaysia, we have e-hailing app, just like in Sri Lanka, Pick Me, we have Grab in Malaysia. So there they have something called the Grab daily insurance, which means that, for example, if you are having a Pick Me similar service in Malaysia, you have to take a insurance for the riding, the service you are providing for the passengers. So it's kind of slightly costly for those people who are earning at that level. And what Grab came up with is using the InsurTech or Takaful Tech. They partnered up with insurance companies and Takaful companies in Malaysia, and they were able to reduce their the premium and make the e-hailing the drivers pay on a daily basis and on a pay as you go basis. So these are all manifestation of fintech. And there are so many actually. So another user case is Zakat Tech. And then even we can extend it to Waqf Tech, which means that using blockchain technology, which we, inshallah, we will briefly explain in our later slides, where we can, one of the key problem with Zakat collection and distribution is transparency, accountability, those things, right? So when it comes to collective Zakat, we are slightly hesitant because we don't know exactly if my donation is going to go and received by the recipient. But what if I said there is a way that you can exactly track from the time of collection until the distribution point exactly what percentage of amount has gone to what recipient, right? So this will kind of build the transparency and by scale, right? There is a huge impact this can bring to the overall Islamic economy and the world economy at large, right? Just like that for Wakuf as well. If you can have a traceability, right? When this Wakuf was origin until the revenue generation and the whole cycle, right? So there are so many user cases, and there are so many proof of concepts that has been seen across the world with the emergence of these technologies, right? So in simple terms, Prof. Yoshi Kawai defines fintech as the technologically enabled financial innovation, right? So it's a very apt way of putting it. So that's the reason I added this definition. So in other words, it's the use of technology to deliver financial services and products to consumers, right? So it can be in the banking area, bank tech, and so on. In the financing, we have lending tech and pay tech, and so on. In insurance, we have insure tech. In investment, we have robo advisory, wealth tech, and all these terms will be defined in the upcoming slides. Okay, so inshallah, what we are trying to cover throughout this presentation is first we will talk about the areas of fintech, which means just to familiarize with the terms or the areas that is present in the fintech ecosystem. And then we'll briefly talk about the evolution of fintech so that it gives us a picture, even though we think that fintech is something a new buzzword, but it has been in existence since for a couple of decades, right? And also we'll try to understand the ecosystem of fintech, who are the major players in this space. And we'll talk about the behind the scene technology enablers, who are in terms of the infrastructure, who are the major players. And then we also need to talk a little bit about the cyber threats that comes with these advanced technologies. And finally, we cannot finish this presentation without talking about Islamic fintech. All right. So when it comes to the key areas of fintech, we have, when it comes to finance, we have paytech and lendtech, right? So paytech and lendtech, we have what we are looking at is it is payments made through technological enablers, right? So now we can make payments and receive payments through the use of technology, right? So just like we were explaining to FreeMe, we also have Apple Pay, Android Pay, and so on. So right now we don't really have to go physically and do all these payments, because the technology, the underlying technology is there to make this payment, which has enabled these payments, right? And we also have in a lendtech using big data and AI, and especially machine learning. So what they are able to do this is, for example, this P2P lending, which means peer-to-peer lending platforms, where they kind of pass through the traditional banking. So directly these marketplaces connect people who needs funding and people who have access in funding, and to create a trust, they build these platforms, the P2P lending platforms. And we also have crowdfunding and so on in the Islamic version. So using AI and big data, they are able to create a credit scoring and increase their eligibility, the funding eligibility, right? And also when we look at the wealth tech space, Wahid is a big player based in UK and Islamic space. And also we have Betterment, and we also have robo advisory, which executes investments based on rules, right? So these are all these are all factors that have drastically bringing down the cost of investments, right? And we also have bank tech, right? We have bank tech, for example, it could be either digital banks, fully fledged digital banks, or it could be neo banks, which means that they don't really have a license per se, but they operate as a neo bank under backed by a digital bank or actual bank, right? So, for example, Revolut, and we also have Ruby and other players in the market, of course. And then we also have InsurTech, right? In the Islamic version, we have the Takaful Tech, people like Lemonade and Fair First, and Click to Claim. All these players are there. So just like I explained earlier, they used AI and machine learning to assess the risk part of it, and also to reduce the cost. They use the Internet of Things using the wearables and so on, and to bring the premiums lower. And also we have RegTech, right? So when it comes to RegTech, this is the for example, the KYC, the KYB, all these things comes in to play, right? So using technology, they can drastically bring the cost of these processes as well. So, for example, and not only it is also a big convenient for the from the customer side, right? We have, like, for example, Shufti4, Trulio in the international market, and in Sri Lankan context, this is something the central bank has been exploring since 2018. They understood, or they recognized the need for shared KYC, which means that just imagine, right? You have to go and open a bank and open a bank account from one bank, and you need to submit all your documents, all the KYC whole process. And if you, let's say, for some reason, a businessman or someone decides to open accounts in couple of banks, if he has to go through the same process again and again, is kind of a pain, right? So if imagine you have done it once, and then you use the same thing, same KYC to verify your identity and your credit scoring in other banks, right? So that's kind of the concept of shared KYC. So in 2018, central bank recognized it, and then up to 2020, they were kind of bidding for players to come and do the work. And then they started the COP, the POC, the proof of concept, from 2020 until 21, I think. I think they tested with 10 banks, and it was a success. And I think right now they are almost in the rollout stage of the shared KYC concept, right? So that is from the Sri Lankan concept. So of course, they as an underlying technology, they were using the blockchain, right? And then yes, of course, the second last point is blockchain, which is a very interesting technology. So in simple terms, to put it very simply, blockchain is technically, it's just like a software. First of all, just to understand, it is a software. It is not a hardware, which means that we cannot. It is not something that is that we can manifest or see, right? And just like any software, right? But it is very different from any other software, of course, right? So what makes it different is, imagine it like a digital notebook, right? So let's say if you have a digital notebook, each page in that digital notebook is a block. So that's how the word blockchain comes in, right? Blocks are connected through a chain, right? So what is this chains? Which means that each block, for example, when you are doing a transactions, right, or any contract, anything, all these informations are added to each page, which means the block, right? And each page or the block is connected with the previous pages or the blocks through the chain. In this case, it will be connected through cryptography, which is which is known as the hashing in the blockchain technological terminology. So so why it is different from other technologies is this is actually a digital kind of a ledger, right? So, for example, in accounting, in when they are auditing, right, the systems, even in auditing, they so when something is recorded, it stays, right? So, for a couple of reasons, this is different because one is it is once you record a transaction in the blockchain, it cannot be erased, right? So which means it is immutable, right? So it stays, and if any thing is changed, the hash also change, which means the blockchain will be tampered, so it will be identified, right? So anyone cannot just change anything in the blockchain. Okay, so that is one key quality. The other key quality is it is everyone has for example, it is not sitting on one computer, right? So usually the blockchain is across thousands of computers, so which we call it as the node, right? So it is distributed. It is distributed, right? So one is it is immutable, it cannot be changed, but whatever we are recording in the blockchain. The other one is it is a distributed technology, ledger technology. We call it DLT, right? So it's a distributed, it is distributed. And the other quality is it is not a centralized system, it is decentralized. So there is no one person who is controlling the data, right? It is across or once a transaction gets updated, it updates in all the nodes, right? So there are so many user cases, just like I mentioned in the earlier, right? Using smart contracts as well, and then just imagine if you can scan your coffee, right? As you are taking some coffee, if you can scan it and know exactly from where this ingredient came, right? Supply chain tracking. For example, we can think about the halal tech, right? Where you have a very clear chain of record from the beginning to the harvest to the production, right? The whole track and chain could be tracked using blockchain technology. Okay, so these are, and of course, the most famous user case is the crypto currencies. There are the currencies that are built on the framework of blockchain, right? Okay, and then finally we have crypto assets. Okay, so sometimes we kind of interchangeably use the word crypto assets with cryptocurrencies. All cryptocurrencies are crypto assets, but not all crypto assets are cryptocurrencies, right? So that's something we have to clearly understand. So when it comes to crypto assets, what we have to understand is it is a digital representation of value or rights that are created, stored, and can be transferred using blockchain technology. So which means that these are value and rights of digital representation of values and rights. So the most prominent ones are, we have Bitcoin, Ethereum. So the whole cryptocurrency things comes under crypto assets, right? And also we have tokens. So when it comes to tokens, we have utility tokens, security tokens, and asset-backed tokens. And these are tokens. Tokens are just like something like a something in simple terms to understand is something that we have paid and we could get access to. So let's say if you have paid for a ticket and now you have access to use a certain facility, right? A utility, a token, okay? You have the token to use a specific utility. So they use this for, for example, cloud storage sharing, and also even for voting. You could use these, tokens, right? And so on. And of course, there are so many other user cases as well. And I'm sure some of us remember there was a time that NFTs were buzzing a lot, right? NFTs, non-fungible tokens, right? Especially used for for these arts and music. So to give a very unique identity for digital creations, digital identity, right? Okay. All right. So very briefly to walk through the fintech evolution, right? There was this first fintech 1.0, which started in we kind of define it from 1866 to 1967, where the initial infrastructure was built at a global level, right? And then came the fintech 2.0, where things move from analog to digitization, right? And then we had the 3.0 era after the global financial crisis, right? People started losing trust on banks slightly, and regulatory requirements became more stricter. So that is when startups started rising. And then we had the fintech 3.5, a slightly extension of it, where it kind of globalized, the startup, disruption. And now we are in the current stage where, a rapid, we see, rapid technological disruptions, right? You see, open AI coming in. We completely changed how we browse the internet, right? And, other integrated services, right? So we'll just slightly go a little bit deeper on each one. So the initial stage of fintech 1.0 is they start with the time where the transatlantic cable was built, right? So that kind of gave access to trade and communication, right? Especially and also with the introduction of credit card by Diner Club and American Express, right? It's kind of started building the initial infrastructure which needed to have this a bigger infrastructure, right? So with this was the time of fintech 1.0. And then came the second era, where we see the birth of handheld calculator, which is kind of the ancestor of our current smartphones, right? And also we saw the first ATM coming in this era, and also the first stock market, digital stock market was established. And with the Swift coming in, cross-border payments was eased, and the cost reduction and all those enablers happen. And with that, online banking started, right? They slowly started shifting into digitization, right? And then towards the end of that time, that is when what we call it as the GFC, the global financial crisis, happened. And traditional bank suffered a lot, right? And some declared bankruptcy, Lehman Brothers, and some of the big names especially in the investment firms, right? And investment banks. And that is when we saw the initial disruption begin, right? We saw that is when the first the paper was written by forgot his name, Yakashimo, something, right? So he wrote this paper on Bitcoin technology, the block, the Bitcoin, right? And then we also saw many mobile payment solutions coming in. So that is when we had also so many social media apps rising initially, right, in this era. So mobile usage across the globe, increased rapidly throughout the globe, right? So with that, so many startups focused on building mobile friendly, consumer friendly, technologies, right, for different financial services. And then with this also, it continued to increase the leverage across people who were locally focusing and went global. And then they increased, they started adapting to different markets and using these technologies, right? And now we see in the current era the use of blockchain technologies, open banking coming in, right? Where the shared KYCs and all these things, and then using machine learning, how different areas of fintechs are building solutions, right? And then we also see mainstream use of NFTs, right? And highly disruptive technologies with the use of uh, uh, AI and blockchain. And especially, these are all mostly data driven, right? All right. So when we talk about the fintech ecosystem, we can kind of divide it into four major sections. One, we have the incumbent financial institutions. These are like the well-established banks and financial institutions. Then we have the big tech finance companies who have their own payment solutions. The whole ecosystem built in within them. And then we also have the infrastructure and the tech providers who are working on the API and so on, right? The enabling technologies. And then we have the disruptors, especially the startups and so on. Very briefly to go on each section. From the global side of it, we have banks, the big ones, just JP Morgan, Chase, Citibank, and so on. And then insurance companies, Allianz. So all these big names are having their own digital space, right? Digital banks. Right. In Sri Lanka, we have, I think probably all of you are familiar with these names, right? Solo by HNB and so on. And then we have the big tech companies in the e-commerce space. We have Apple, Google, Amazon, and so on. And then social media, we have WeChat, and then in the software space, we have Microsoft and even Amazon services, and so on, right? And then in Sri Lanka, we have these technology communications. Telecommunication companies, having their own payment systems, Dialog and so on. The initial recently now people started using GovPay as well to pay their fines, and now they are I think they have said that by September the whole island it will be available, and Kapruka as well. They are exploring their own building their own ecosystem, and of course Just Pay by Lanka Pay, right? And we also have the technology enablers, right, who are providing cloud services, API integrations, and open banking solutions, right? And then core banking software solutions, right? And then reg tech compliance, just like all the things that we discussed earlier, and then cybersecurity for finance, and then data analytics, right? So just wanted to slightly talk about the role Lanka play, or previously known as Lanka Clear, have played. So sometimes I think probably some of us are aware, but most of us don't really see Lanka Pay a lot, because it's mostly doing things in the behind the scene, right? So Lanka Clear, initially established as a check clearing check clearing house, established by central bank, with a 40 odd percent owned by, and then the rest is owned by central bank and other banks, right? So they initially started with that, and then after that they built a solution where they connected all the ATMs, right? So thanks to them, when you go to withdraw your money from commercial bank using a HNB bank, right? HNB ATM, right? So just as you are entering the your debit card, right? Notice I'm not saying credit card, right? So debit card, you see that it's kind of saying wait, we are verifying. So that is the time the Lanka Pay is doing the behind the scene work. So they are receiving their request to their system and verifying that you are a user from commercial bank, and they authenticate, and it's kind of a rule based system. So they send the verification to commercial, the HNB ATM, saying that yes, he's a commercial bank account holder, you can proceed. So once you enter the amount, the next request goes, and then to verify that whether you really actually have that amount in your bank. And once that is verified, again the message is received. Yes, he has that amount, and then the HNB releases the money from their bank, from their ATM, right? So, but that is instantly received to the user, right? But later on, there is a clearing process goes between the bank on the on a specific duration, right? So they do a separate clearing between bank on the total aggregated, right? So this is something Lanka Pay has been building, and also now they also later on build a real-time transfer through their Just Pay, right? So now you can use any other apps, right? And using their Just Pay, you can directly transfer regardless of the bank, or so they are trying to they have been brought a non-banking financial institutions, and also they're also trying to bring the fintechs into this whole payment ecosystem, right? And we have other players like Epic, and then also Pay Here, Direct Pay. All these are payment gateways, and also they have other services as well. And then we have disruptors, right? Who are generally seen as the fintech startups and so on. We have the new bank, challenger banks, payment processing gateways, robo advisory, and then any company that is built on the blockchain technology. And then we have Taka Fulltech, Takadao, and any other players in the market, and InsurTech as well, right? So in Sri Lanka, we have these people who are playing their own distinct role in different payment, and also Gendo is I think doing in the and Flash Health. These are in the health sector. All right. So these are just to list down the technological enablers, right? These are like mostly, I think we have discussed all of them. We have AI, and then machine learning, and we also have robo advisory, and we have blockchain technology, and distributed ledger technology. So blockchain is one of the distributed ledger technologies, and there are many other distributed ledger technologies which are built on a different for different purposes and so on, right? And then we also have smart contract that are built on in a self-executed way, where when certain rules are met, those things are executed, right? Sharia compliance contract and so on are built, right? We can see this in the smart sukuk and so on, the sukuk space as well. We are seeing this. Okay, so before we conclude, one of the key areas I wanted to touch is also with the technological enablers comes its own problems as well, right? Or challenges rather, right? So one of the biggest challenges is of course the cyber threats, the cyber attacks, social engineering and so on, all these things, right? So we see huge amounts, not just 100, 200,000, have been billions sometimes. People, companies lose money, right? So we see so many things, so many times, even in the global context, huge amounts are lost due to the cyber attacks, right? And some are completely irrecoverable, right? Even in Sri Lankan context also, we have seen in recent times also, there have been data breaches and so on, right? So with this technological advancement, there is a huge need to increase the security side of it as well, right? Using the same technology. So just to talk a little bit about these, what are those the most common attack types, right? Because even personally, I receive calls, or even friends, family reaching out things, and sometimes by the time they reach out, it's too late, right? They have already fallen prey to it, right? And so many cases, right? So that's why I felt the need to at least have some points mentioned here, so that we don't fall prey into these kind of attacks, right? So one of the most common one is phishing attacks, right? Sometimes yeah, I think in most of the cases, almost every one of us might have received an email, right? Which is mostly goes to the junk, right? And then if they are lucky, sometimes it can land in our inbox as well, right? It could convince in a way that he is coming from a very authenticated body, or it could say things that in a way that is convincing, and sometimes we fall into prey. But of course, there are ways to flag them, right? That is something we will also look into. And also we have social engineering. This is something people fall into prey a lot, right? So they call you and they convince you in a way that you think that this is a very genuine thing, and then you fall and you give your OTP away, right? According to the CEO of Lanka Pay, Chanda De Silva, what he mentioned was, in Sri Lanka, in the majority of, even though we have cyber attacks, but most of the high percentage of it is social engineering, where they play into the behavioral aspect of human, right? And then they kind of manipulate you and make you give you the pin or any sensitive information that you're not supposed to share, right? So whenever you receive any calls that is suspicious, any messages that is suspicious, too good to be true, right? Those kind of messages, always think twice, right? And SIM swapping, where they try to convince it's their mobile number, and they convince the what do you call the telecommunication company, and try to change the target person's number into their number and receive their OTPs, right? And also we have to be very careful when we are downloading apps, right? Which sometimes may exactly look like a very official app. So we have to always make sure it is the app that we are downloading. It could be a malware, right? And also, when data breaches of such happened in the past, right? Recently, also, I think there was a billions of account. There was a huge breach from Google, and I think a couple of big names, right? So when this happens, they get access to your credentials, and then they can completely take over your account. So that's why it's a good practice to every after a couple of a specific period to change your credentials, right? So that we be safe, right? And also we have to be very careful when we are surfing the Wi-Fi, especially in the public areas, right? So if a attacker is also has the access to the same public Wi-Fi, he can get into your system using his own ways, right? And of course, when you are clicking on any links, we have to be always careful. It could be something that we have downloaded without us knowing. It could be a malware or a spyware, right? Yeah, just to show, this is a very typical certain flags that we have to note in a very typical phishing email or a message, right? So always look into the details, right? If you look at the first flag, right, look at the domain at the end. So usually the my is usually has to be at the end, right? It has to be like at utsd.edu.my. So if there's a general way of writing things, if there's even a small difference, always be careful, especially when you receive emails from someone who is saying some fancy name in the beginning, an institution, but at the end, sometimes they might be using Gmail, right? If then definitely it's not from a genuine company. So if it is a company, usually they will use their own company domain name after the @ right? So always look into that. And then the subject line, if you see, there is, couple of exclamation marks, right? It's not a kind of a professional way of writing, and it kind of, shows, give you a red flag as well, right? And also, always look into spelling errors, right? And the way they have written the dollar sign in the third flag, the dollar sign is after the 350, right? And if this amount, so sometimes, recently there was one of my friends, he's a young guy, I think. So he somehow have received a message, and then somehow he fell prey to it. Luckily, he didn't send any money, but they promised him, this it's a simple job, like data entry job, but we will be paying you $2,000 per month. So if you receive such messages that is too good to be true, always keep an eye. So he have continued to work, and then by the time they were supposed to send him money, they were asking him to send a couple of couple of thousands to make to get that money into his account. So those are things that are big flags, right? We have to be very careful about these things, right? And then if they are using too much kindly, that's another way of flagging it, right? And then if they're asking for private email and so on, right? And also, if you are receiving a job offer without even applying, that's a very big flag, right? So, and also, if another key thing in those messages or even calls is they will be showing an urgency, right? So if that is, they are showing, you need to send me the money before today or end of the day. If there is some urgency in the message or in the call, that is definitely another red flag, right? So these are just a couple of things we wanted to highlight. And then finally, how to protect ourselves. Of course, don't share your OTPs. Make sure you verify, and always say two-step verification into accounts, right? And then avoid any unofficial apps, downloading anything, right? Regularly keep updated, right? And also always keep an eye to all those flags we mentioned, right? And if you see anything, make sure you report to the the relevant authorities and change your password if your accounts are compromised, right? So immediately take action. All right, so we have come almost to the final slides. Just to give you a very brief, so in when it comes to Islamic fintech, it's not a small industry. It's, even though it's in its infancy, we are growing, right? And we it was in last year. It was all close to 161.2 billion, and it is expected to grow, almost more than 100%, right? And then in terms of volume, these are the countries. In the top three, we have Saudi, Indonesia, and Malaysia, right? And in terms of volume, we have alternative financing solutions and payments and wealth management, and so on, right? All these things. And yeah, just for you to know that we have so many players. We had just added this slide. Right now we have close to 463 players globally in the fintech space, in different sectors, P2P financing, and then alternative financing, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, trading, and robo advisory. We have a couple of players, and personal financing, Taka Tech, right? And we also have in data analysis, and even in the challenging bank sector, right? Okay, so with that, we also like to remind, inshallah, we will be having a special lecture this Friday at Nimal Road Masjid, Majmaul Khairat Masjid. Inshallah, definitely, if you have friends, family living around that area, please do pass the message. And definitely, inshallah, not miss out on this exclusive session conducted by Maulana Murshid. And we also, inshallah, will be soon having courses that are focused on Islamic investment and many other areas. So keep an eye on our community, right? So very briefly, So today's presentation or webinar was organized by Ummad, a United Muslim Muamalat Advisory. So they do provide financial consulting, financial training, compliance audit, and if you have any business related document to review, they are Sharia compliant, right? And if you need any investment related guidance in terms of Sharia, they are ready to provide you. And also, if you are struggling to calculate your individual or business zakat, they are the go-to person. And of course, we have to have our inheritance and last will also planned. So if you have anything that you would like to have, please do contact them, and we can make an appointment and consult their respected scholars, inshallah. All right. So with this, inshallah, we will conclude our session. Jazakumullah khair for all of you joining. Until we have another webinar, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.